And now, a dramatic reading of The Rugrats in The Rats Take the Cheese by Rogue Weather, also known as Schisma. Does anyone remember The Rugrats? I'm pretty sure it was a great show, but I don't remember much about it. Weird thing is, I used to remember a lot more as a kid. As you get older, time speeds up and you have less of a chance to reflect on past experiences. It's almost like you turn into a lesser copy of yourself as time progresses. Now, one thing I do know for definite certainty is that Rugrats was a kid's show, but there's a rare missing episode of Rugrats you've probably never seen. I know what you're thinking, these lost episodes are dime a dozen. Let me fucking tell you something. There's a whole lot you don't know, my friend. I used to work for Nike Loading. The whole company is run by a bunch of old sweaty men that are focused on sucking the pennies out of little Jane and Eric's lunch money piggy bank so that they can get extra spoilers on their Chrysler and Jeep vehicles and fuck their 45-year-old ghastly mail-order hookers with Sisyphus. I was babysitting my nephew Jobriath when the phone rang. I had been putting some slick Murray's hair pomegranate in my stylish retro hairstyle when I promptly picked up the phone. It was my supervisor, Don Kegel. I worked as an animator, part-time, 20 hours a week for Nickelodeon. I was considered a buffer in the industry. There were some small issues with a piece of animation in pre-production. A character could be missing eyes or eating breakfast when it's clearly night outside. When they needed little things like that fixed, they called me. Unfortunately, the episode that I ended up taking a look at was nothing like whatever aired. I never liked that show. I mean, it was for babies. Now, I'm a grown man, and I watch exciting television shows such as He-Man vs. Skeletor and Robotrons, Power Robots with Power Zords. The tape came in the mail in a manila envelope. I was supposed to watch the tape, take a few notes, and send it back for post-production when I got into the office. Technically, the episode was completed. It just needed some finite touches for the American public to ingest, like so many pounds of pizza dough per year. This manila folder was labeled SR2300, The Rats Take the Cheese. I got out my pen and paper, got some juji fruits, and made a Coke root beer float, my favorite. I sat down and put the tape on, expecting another typical Rugrats episode where the babies go on some asinine adventure into the attic or something. Boy, was I wrong. Instead, the Mother Markbaw's produced theme was music to my ears. A wonderful accompaniment to a show I merely regarded as work. The title, Deanne Gets an Abortion, made me terribly confused. Deanne was the name of Dee Dee, or Tommy Pickles' character, in case you didn't know. The episode played like any other, with the babies sitting around in their playpen talking. They were arguing over what make-believe scenario they would come up with this week. One wanted to be a pirate in the 1700s, and another wanted to be a World War II bomber in the 1940s. What Chucky said concerned me, however. I want to be a reporter in the 2001 attacks on the World Trade Center! There was a sound of black noise in the background. It was someone in the kitchen cooking. The sound of utensils clattering was extremely loud. It really hurt my ears. I made a note about the 9/11 reference and the overt noise in this sequence. While this was pre-September 11, I was still concerned about what exactly Chucky was talking about. The picture was also slowly fading between black and white in color. I think it was supposed to be a past event occurring, but it was hard to tell. Tommy's gums were bleeding something fierce. I guess it's normal for baby gums to bleed, but the blood surrounding the tartar on his one cankerous tooth was far too graphic for what the show usually portrayed. The babies decided to play professional wrestler. The scene cut to a fantasy sequence of them all pretending to be their favorite wrestlers. It was all fine and well until a real wrestler came in and started attacking the babies. A grown, muscled, 300-pound wrestler that looked like Hulk Hogan entered the ring and started attacking the babies. He gave Chucky a piledriver, shattering his glasses. He picked up Phil and Lil, I think that's what their names were, and wore them like shoes while he stomped around the ring. He threw Tommy Pickles at the rubber of the sidelines. He flew like a basketball across the room, slammed into the floor, and the wrestler dove straight into him. You might think it was merely a dream sequence, but blood was everywhere. 4 dead babies lay on the floor while the wrestler showboated his skills to the audience. To thunderous applause, I might add. I made a note about how this was not family friendly, and no one wanted to see dead babies. Tommy's father, Stu, walked in and immediately left the room when he saw the babies. It's not that he saw them, but he saw something which made him turn around. Nobody else seems to even acknowledge the babies. "Our new playmate is arriving today," Phil said with a stern look on his face. A grown German man entered the room and began to play with the babies. He played patty cake. Patty cake, baker's man knocked, he yelled. He sat there and played in their birthday party. The babies seemed relaxed, though I was very confused. "He won't leave us alone," Tommy said, crying. In fact, the babies opened the playpen and left to climb upstairs. The German man followed them up there. As they climbed the stairs very slowly, the German man followed them, not interacting or stopping them, but following them. All of a sudden, there was a sound of an explosion! Thunder had hit a power line outside, I think. There was a shot of the baby's bedroom, but it was just a guest room for now. "We have to get our clothing," Tommy said with a stern look on his face. They went into the attic and opened up a chest full of musty clothes. I heard the sound of snipping, and some bloody cord was in the corner. "I feel," Tommy started. Suddenly, the film clipped completely. I made a note about the abrupt transition, but the camera cut to a scene of Tommy, who appeared to have assembled himself out of the other babies. Maybe they were holding him up? He was in an overcoat, not walking naturally. I dropped my notepad when I saw what happened next. Tommy dropped the coat. Dozens of dead babies, including the extended cast, were glued to Tommy's body. Tommy was dead too. His eyes were completely hollow. The humanoid stack of dead babies had 3 dead babies for each leg, 4 dead babies for a torso, and Tommy's head sat at the top of the stack as the ringleader of this contorted monstrosity. The pulsing internal organs writhing within a twisted bone column structure were like something out of an H.P. Lovecraft novel. Highly realistic gore of the heart and lungs were depicted inside the pulsing, realistically rendered internal organs. The parts that were skin were stretched tight, bound together and staped or sewn. The hideous creature ambled down an airport terminal, smiling at people who gawked in horror. I picked up the notepad and made several notes about the editing and tone of this scene, but my pen would no longer write for some reason. "This is no dream," someone whispered. The camera rotated around Tommy's head, showing fragments of his detached skull. There was nothing inside his head, and the rendering was much more realistic here. I was extremely curious to know what artists had worked on this, as no one at Nickelodeon's animation department had this particular style. "This is no dream," the voice repeated. All of a sudden, the eyeless Tommy humanoid stopped dead in its tracks. The head rolled off, the legs crumbled, it slumped over slowly, and then fell to pieces. Suddenly, the camera cut to Dee Dee and Stu making pudding. "Stu, why are you making pudding at 11:11 p.m.? "Because I have lost complete control of my life," Stu replied. I assumed this was all a dream sequence, albeit an extremely fucked up one. Stu looked very disheveled. He picked up the phone and started mumbling over the phone. "I just want closure!" he yelled, slamming the phone down. "Oh no," Stu said. The German man was rooting through their fridge. The video suddenly cut to someone performing a real-life C-section on a patient. As the doctor made the incision, I heard the familiar Rugrats intro play. Who would play the Rugrats intro during a surgical procedure? I had enough. I puked up a small amount of juji fruit and shut this nonsensical and disturbing tape off. I leaned forward and spilled my Coke float all over my brand new Ottoman. No one, and I mean no one, would let daytime children's programming play disturbing surgery videos. I had had enough. I promptly called my production manager and demanded to know the meaning of this video, as well as demanded compensation for my ruined furniture. Instead, I just heard the scene replay. Stu, why are you making pudding at 3 a.m.? Because I've lost complete control of my life. Click. I hung up the phone. It would take me 2 hours to drive to the office, and they were closed on weekends. I couldn't find my key to the office anyway. Curiosity got the best of me. I put the tape back in and sat through the entire C-section video. The doctors didn't extract a fetus. They pulled a bloody VHS tape out of the woman. Maybe it was a surgery video? How could a VHS tape get inside a woman like that? Unless someone had put it in there. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. The camera zoomed. It was the very tape I was watching. SR2300, the rats take the cheese. I had that dream again, Stu said, waking up. We were in another dimension, where everything was more clear. We moved different. We were different, Stu sighed. I think I'm going to make some pudding. He left the room, mumbling, quite disheveled. He drifted half between a waking and dreaming state, sliding down the staircase as the camera kept him at a distance. Phil and Lil stood like towers at the end of the hall. Someone threw something at them and they exploded. Was this still a dream? Now I understand, Stu said, making the pudding slowly. You could hear the whisk grinding uncomfortably against the metal bowl. We had the baby, and we didn't. It grew up, but it didn't. We never conceived it, and we did, and it died. What was a Schrodinger's cat reference doing in a children's cartoon? All of a sudden, my phone rang. It was the sound of a German man on the other line. We know that you have our tape. It is best you do not move from your current position. Someone will come to pick it up in the morning. This is an order. I suddenly had the urge to make some pudding. I turned on the stove and got the mix. I could only assume that this was one of the higher-ups at Nickelodeon Studios. You know, one of those guys who sits behind a desk all day twiddling his thumbs and masturbating to Japanese-drawn cartoons. In retrospect, I should have left town immediately. I woke up bright and early at 9 a.m. I made a delicious breakfast of French toast with powdered sugar, eggs, and baby sausage links. As I ate my breakfast, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole just to be sure. There was a professional wrestler outside my door. He was dressed exactly like the one in the cartoon. Open this goddamn door, he yelled. I opened the door. Give me that goddamn tape, he ordered. He had a duffel bag filled with dead plastic babies. I gave him the tape, but it was a counterfeit. Part of me wanted to sabotage the whole operation. I was planning to quit anyway. He punched me in the jaw, twisted my leg, slammed me on the coffee table. I scrambled out of the room and he threw dead plastic babies at me. He kicked me in the side, punched me in the balls. I grabbed at his spandex and it ripped off, revealing that he had a muscly horse vagina instead of normal human genitalia. I screamed in horror as the horse vagina disturbed me. I scrambled into the kitchen, where molten hot pudding was still bubbling over the stove. I hit the handle as the professional wrestler pounded into me. The handle flew back, scalding his face. I screamed as his beard burned away and the flesh of his skin turned third-degree white. My beauty! My youth! He screamed. The neighbors had called the police, and we were both arrested. Nickelodeon covered the entire thing up, playing a completely different episode. This one never aired. I can only assume that the other type was meant for someone else on Earth. Or someone else. I was never compensated for the Ottoman. As for the tape itself, I hid it somewhere no one would ever find it. Let's just say I wasn't horsing around.